Welcome back to part 2 of our French Revolution explainer. If you were with us for part 1, you know the powder keg is absolutely packed. Well, today, we're lighting the match. We're going to explore the incredible chronological explosion of events from 1789 to 1799. I mean, we're talking about a single chaotic decade that literally shattered the old world order. The sheer velocity of change here is just breathtaking. We'll track how a movement that started with demands for, moderate reform accelerated into unprecedented violence. And then we'll zoom out to look at the massive historical fallout that permanently reshaped the globe.
Okay, let's dive right into this roadmap. 1. Sparking the revolution. 2. Radicalization and the terror. 3. Enter Napoleon Bonaparte. 4. Transforming France. And finally, 5. The global ripple effect. Let's get into it.
Section 1. Sparking the Revolution.
It is absolutely fascinating to see how a basic attempt to fix a fiscal crisis escalated into a total breakdown of absolute authority in just 5 short months. Let's look at how this builds. In May 1789, the king calls the Estates General to solve this financial mess, right? But the Third Estate, the commoners, are blocked from voting by head count. By June, they are fed up. Locked out of their assembly hall, they gather on a nearby indoor tennis court, declare themselves the National Assembly, and swear an oath not to disband until France has a constitution. Then the powder keg blows, July 14th. Fearing royal troops, an armed Parisian mob storms the Bastille fortress. This is the official start of popular violence. Just weeks later in August, the Assembly drafts the Declaration of the Rights of Man and of the Citizen, laying down universal principles of liberty and equality. But the crisis is far from over. By October, spurred by severe bread shortages, thousands of working-class women march on Versailles, breach palace security, and literally force King Louis XVI and his family to relocate to Paris. So within 5 months, the absolute monarch of France has essentially become a hostage of the revolution. Section 2. Radicalization and the terror. So the revolution doesn't just stabilize from here, it accelerates. We're entering a period of war, intense paranoia, and extreme radicalization. The real point of no return is June 1791, with the flight to Varennes. The royal family tries to escape Paris in disguise to get foreign military help, but they get caught. And this failed escape, it permanently destroys any remaining public trust in the monarchy. Things get intensely volatile. Terrified that foreign armies are going to invade to restore the king, the revolutionary government launches a preemptive war against Austria in April 1792, which very quickly drags in Prussia. By August, an armed mob storms the king's palace at the Tuileries. The monarchy is officially suspended, and a newly elected national convention declares France a republic. And then January 1793. King Louis XVI is put on trial for high treason and executed by the guillotine, which, ironically, was invented to be a humane, enlightened, equal method of execution for everyone. But yeah, the point of no return is officially crossed. With the king dead, France is now fighting off foreign invasions and internal civil wars simultaneously. It's a massive pressure cooker of paranoia. And this allows a group called the Committee of Public Safety, led by Maximilien Robespierre, to take dictatorial control. They quickly passed something called the Law of Suspects. This was a radical decree that effectively stripped citizens of standard legal protections. It allowed the state to arrest and try almost anyone suspected of treason, or, honestly, even just lacking enthusiasm for the revolution. The direct result of this legal system is the Reign of Terror. 40,000. Let that sink in. That is the staggering, approximate number of people who were executed or died in prison for alleged counter-revolutionary activities between September 1793 and July 1794. The guillotine became a daily spectacle, and it was used on powerful nobles and poor commoners alike. But an atmosphere of constant fear just can't be sustained indefinitely. On July 27, 1794, we get the Thermidorian reaction. The National Convention, basically fed up and completely terrified that any one of them could be next on the executioner's list, finally turns on Robespierre. He's arrested, and after a botched suicide attempt leaves him with a shattered jaw, he's guillotined the very next day. And just like that, the Reign of Terror abruptly ends. Section 3. Enter Napoleon Bonaparte.
Now, following the fall of Robespierre, the whole country is just exhausted by extremism and desperate for some kind of stability. So what's really interesting about this is how revolutionary chaos actually ends up in military rule. First, in 1795, a conservative middle-class government called the Directory takes power, but it's highly corrupt, economically weak, and super unstable. Fast forward to November 1799. a massively popular, brilliant military general named Napoleon Bonaparte sees a golden opportunity. Capitalizing on this really weak government, he overthrows the Directory in a bloodless event known as the Coup of 18 Brumaire. He establishes a new government called the Consulate, names himself first consul, and takes absolute executive control. And with that, the wild, chaotic 10-year revolutionary decade finally comes to a close.
Section 4. Transforming France. Okay, so we've just raced through a decade of dizzying events, but it's really vital to understand the structural consequences here. The daily reality of France was permanently transformed. Think about it. The Ancien regime was built entirely on feudalism. Aristocrats had tax exemptions, peasants paid seigneurial dues, the Catholic Church collected mandatory tithes. But post-revolution, that entire legal framework is totally dismantled. Feudalism is abolished. The Catholic Church loses its vast landholdings, which the state actually confiscated to back a new paper currency. And secularism becomes a defining feature of the government. This is a massive, foundational shift toward our modern concept of equal citizenship. So the crucial point is how all of this was legally locked into place. Under Napoleon, the revolution swept away hundreds of localized, totally contradictory feudal laws. This all culminated in the Civil Code of 1804, which we know as the Napoleonic Code. It legally consolidated the big victories of the revolution: equality of all citizens before the law, freedom of religion, and the strict protection of private property. Plus, old provincial loyalties were dismantled, and France was reorganized into these uniform, efficient districts called departments, run by merit-based bureaucrats instead of hereditary nobles. And why does this matter to us today? Well, because the Napoleonic Code didn't just stay in France. It became the direct legal foundation for civil law systems used in dozens of modern nations all over the world right now. Section 5. The global ripple effect. You see, the French Revolution was never going to be contained just within the borders of France. The principles and literally the armies of the revolution spilled over and permanently changed global geopolitics. First off, the astonishing global rise of nationalism. Before 1789, wars were mostly fought between kings using relatively small armies of professional mercenaries. But the French Revolution introduced the levée en masse, mass conscription. Suddenly, defending the country was the duty of the everyday citizen. This shifted warfare to an unimaginably massive scale and created an intensely powerful sense of national identity and pride that just swept across Europe, inspiring other ethnic groups to eventually demand their own unified nation-states. This massive new scale of citizen-led warfare totally destabilized the old European monarchies. Now, even though European powers eventually defeated Napoleon and formed the Congress of Vienna in 1815 to try and put legitimate monarchs back on their thrones, it was just too late. The illusion of the absolute divine right of kings was broken forever. To avoid a repeat of the guillotine, rulers across Europe throughout the 19th century were progressively forced to adapt. They had to adopt written constitutions, grant civil liberties, and actually share power with newly formed parliaments. And this shockwave crossed the Atlantic, too. Over in France's wealthiest sugar colony, Saint-Domingue, the enslaved populations were directly inspired by the French Declaration of the Rights of Man. Led by a brilliant commander named Toussaint Louverture, they launched a massive insurrection. And incredibly, they defeated the armies of Britain, Spain, and even France itself to establish Haiti, the world's first independent republic ruled by formerly enslaved people. The ripple effect just kept going. Because Napoleon invaded the Iberian Peninsula, Spain and Portugal were severely weakened. Revolutionary leaders in South and Central America, guys like Simón Bolívar and José de San Martín, saw their colonial masters totally paralyzed back home. So they struck while the iron was hot. And this brilliantly illustrates how the revolution acted as a critical catalyst. They launched successful wars of independence that shattered the mighty Spanish Empire, essentially unraveling colonialism in the Americas. So, as we wrap up this explainer, I really want to leave you with a profound contradiction to chew on. The French Revolution dismantled oppressive feudal systems and birthed our modern concepts of equal citizenship, human rights, and written constitutions. Yet, as we've seen, it achieved all of this through mob violence, a reign of terror, and decades of continent-spanning warfare at a truly devastating cost of human life. Which leaves us with this heavy, enduring question. Can true, foundational societal transformation ever be achieved peacefully? Or does the birth of a new world always require a trial by fire? Thank you so much for exploring this remarkable piece of history with me today. Keep learning and keep asking the big questions.